This video will be a comprehensive overview of some of the more interesting features of the case specification, as well as SkillAuthor and how it interacts with those fields. So first things first, imsglobal.org/activity/case. This is the main page where you'll find a lot of case information. Public documents here, there's several PowerPoints, there's videos of case in action even. There's also the information model, which is actually probably one of the most useful documents. The REST information API, which is somewhat useful as well. An older best practices guide, which we do have an updated one that will be in the next month or two, hopefully by December of 2020. A new one will be published, but right now this still has the current implementation guide. So I'm not going to really click on all these documents, but it is important to go through these. But first, just an overview of what case is. A case is just a way for us to exchange information about competency frameworks, and it's set up in a way that I think is useful to understand. So within what we call a CF package, we have the three main elements that we deal with in SkillAuthor: a document, item, and association. So the document has all the information about the framework, right? So things about when it was published, when it's been adopted, when it's been deprecated, who owns it, who publishes it, all that kind of stuff. And then the items are really the statements themselves. It's probably the most important part. And the associations, where we have information, we have an association type called isChildOf, which creates the tree structure. But we can also do other things like putting in progression statements using the precedes association. So associations are how we link CF items to one another, both within the document and without. CF definitions are things that kind of exist outside of this, but within the package. So we have concepts, which include concept keywords, which are really important for our mapping work. Subjects, so identifying if a framework contains math, English, French, etc. Item type is one of the really most useful definition objects, because it can say that this is it's where we define that in this framework, a cluster means this, or KSAO means this, and so we can define that. The license, of course, has information about who can use the framework and how. And association group, technically, we don't really use it much in SkillAuthor, but we can group associations in different ways. So within SkillAuthor, here's this particular framework. So for example, if I click on this, I'm looking here now at the document information. So I can click on this, I can change the name of the document. I can change the creator. If this document is coming from like an official PDF, I would put that here in the official URI. The publisher, could be a state, could be a district, etc. The version number, a description, here's the subjects, right? Okay. And then, the adoption status, right? So that's kind of how we do things, and I can just save that. Then once I'm clicking here, I'm now clicking on my items, right? And I can view this like this. This is an item. Most of these fields are supplemental. The only thing that's really required here is the full statement or description. Human coding scheme is used to organize the statements, obviously. List enumeration and source is describing if it's coming from a PDF, we want to know what defined it, because eventually we might want to recreate this as a PDF, right? So we might say, like, as a list, it was just a hyphen, or maybe it was an asterisk, or maybe it was a number. That's what list enumeration and source is supposed to denote. Abbreviated statement is actually it's a powerful statement, because a lot of times we have statements that will have like a bolded header, and that would be the abbreviated statement. Underneath it, it would have a more full description of the standard that's being discussed. So if there's an abbreviated statement in SkillAuthor, the user interface will show that first, and then when someone clicks on it, then it will show the full statement. Concept keywords aren't required, but very useful to put in there when we're doing further mapping work. If this is a framework that we're creating, we want to encourage use of concept keywords. Education or grade level, right? We have a pre-made list, but you can always add other grade levels as well. Item type, right? We have some in here already, but if you want to add more, then you just would start to type it. and then you would be able to add it like that. So very easy to add an item type, but just make sure you've defined it. Make sure you know why you're defining it. And notes is intended for someone to look at. It's not intended for like the machine readability per se, but it is intended for other users to see. However, again, it's at the bottom for a reason. It's not something we want to encourage. We want to have all the information about the competency in the full statement itself. If I want to map this to somewhere else, so let's say I want to do a progression statement where I say, hey, this leads to this statement over here, for example, or in another document. So I can use an association type here. Again, for general purpose crosswalks, we prefer to use Skill Mapper, but we do have a basic associations in here just because sometimes we do need to be able to do that. So I can say that this is proceeds, and then I choose my my framework that I want to link to. So let's just do the holistic framework for now. And then what I would do is I'd select my standard that I want to link it to. I can search that framework, of course, but I click here, I click map. Now I've made that mapping. And then when I go back here, I can see that I've made that mapping. So again, we prefer for all kinds of mapping, we prefer to use Skill Mapper, but SkillAuthor can make this, especially if we're using the precedes association. That's how we build progressions. The change log goes through and says exactly what changed. It even shows you what's been changed. So very, very nice to see. And that's pretty much how we do things in SkillAuthor for CF items. So again, just keep in mind, abbreviated statement is a very powerful statement, as well as CF item type can be used later to help sort our conceptual items by the type of statement that they are.